Hey, jackass, where's my DoorDash?
I don't know. DoorDash had a problem. As their cloud-native environment scaled and developers delivered new features, their monitoring system did what monitoring systems do and kept breaking down. In an organization where data is used to make better decisions about technology and about the business, losing observability means the entire company loses their competitive edge. With Chronosphere, DoorDash is no longer losing visibility into their application suite. What's the key? Chronosphere is an open-source, compatible, scalable, and reliable observability solution that gives the observability lead at DoorDash business confidence and peace of mind. To learn more, read the full success story at snark.cloud/Chronosphere success. It's been a long while since this happened to me, but I recently had the pleasure of being surprised by an AWS bill I wasn't expecting. For those of you who might not be fully aware of my day job, I'm the chief cloud economist at the Duckbill Group. For the last 5 years, my world has revolved around AWS billing intricacies and sorting them out for a wide variety of fascinating clientele. In other words, you can dispense with the traditional children of Reddit style admonishments to set up billing alarms and budgets, and accusations that I have no idea what I'm talking about. You can safely assume that for me to be surprised by an AWS bill, something very strange must have happened. And frankly, that's something I find very concerning. At reInvent last year, AWS announced Amazon's SageMaker Canvas. If you look at the launch blog post, it says absolutely nothing about a pricing model, but that's okay, I'm used to those shenanigans. I spun up a SageMaker Canvas job in mid-December, played with it for roughly 45 whole minutes, and then I turned it off, or so I thought. Delving into my email inbox, I found a notification that I skimmed and promptly disregarded from AWS back in April that said, in part, until March of 2022, session charges were not enabled. As a result, your use of Canvas only incurred model training charges. Starting April of 2022, you will see session charges for SageMaker Canvas usage. For more information, see the SageMaker Canvas pricing page. I had ignored this, as I obviously wasn't still running a SageMaker Canvas application. I deleted it. This was obviously intended to let me know that going forward, I would be charged in a different way should I reuse a service at some point. Time passed. In late June, I started getting a warning that my SageMaker usage was approaching the limits of the AWS free tier, and that was something that I didn't ignore. I logged into the relevant account, I played hide and seek with the bill, and eventually found a SageMaker Notebook run instance charge being accrued in Ohio. So I went to the Ohio region and conducted a thorough study of the notebook section of the SageMaker console and found no notebook. So I did the responsible thing, which you should do if you are confused about this, and opened a ticket with AWS support. To AWS support's credit, they escalated to the SageMaker team and responded relatively rapidly with the correct answer, but I never saw it. A mail filter rule of mine ate their response, and that one is entirely my fault. The next notice I got was from my own internal billing monitors 6 days into July, as the bill for this thing climbed past $260. To say that I was perplexed would be an understatement. After some digging on my part and some explaining on AWS's, I now know what went wrong. At launch, SageMaker Canvas only charged for actively running training jobs. This is what I killed after 45 minutes back in December. However, I didn't log out of my Canvas session. Starting at the end of April, AWS added charges of $1.90 an hour for every session in Canvas. I got an additional 2-month grace period, apparently, since that's the 2-month free tier that you get the first time you spin up SageMaker resources in an account. That kicked the can into July, when my open session began accruing charges. As a result of those 6 days of sneaky session charges, AWS managed to reduce my stash of AWS credits by roughly $260. This session billing dimension is, to the best of my knowledge, unique among AWS services. I'm used to either starting an instance or a container and being billed until I terminate it. Never before have I been billed for a session that didn't either auto-terminate, like Amazon Workspaces. By default, that thing shuts down after half an hour of a user going idle, or conclude once my AWS console session had timed out or been logged out of. Further, unlike virtually every other AWS service, there's no way to see the resource for which I was being charged in the normal AWS console. I had to first get into that, then explicitly log into the SageMaker Canvas separate console to see any of this. From within that console, it was also not at all obvious that there was a running job, because there wasn't. There was simply a session that had not been logged out of, which was being billed as a running notebook. The session was not obvious, and the notebook list was empty. Mistakes that eat AWS credits aren't able to be granted concessions, which is Amazonian for refunds, so my $260 in credits are now forever lost to me. This is fine. I am obviously not salty. But in return for having fallen into the SageMaker team's cunning trap, I come instead with $260 worth of uncomfortable questions for them about this entire experience.
Explain your AWS bill.
Number 1, my IAM user session times out after an hour. This is annoying, but I've learned to live with it. Why does a Canvas session not time out apparently ever? Did someone not flag the overloading of the term session during the pricing discussions? Number 2, it costs $2,000 to leave a Canvas session running for a month. Were I a student or individual learner on the hook for this charge, I would have been better off financially had I left the oven on instead of SageMaker. I mean, at least I can get insurance for house fires, and the deductible would easily be less than $2,000. Do you have any plans to offer AWS bill overage insurance? Number 3, do customers using this service routinely have sessions that last the better part of a year? To my mind, seeing a user session last that long means I should probably call that user either an ambulance or a coroner. 4, why was a service launched to general availability at the end of November, but a significant pricing dimension not billed until the following April? 5, at any point when deciding to start charging that $1.90 per hour session fee, did someone suggest perhaps, maybe stopping any existing multi-month long running sessions as of the onset of that fee, unless a customer explicitly requested to keep their session going? Presumably, you must have placed that Amazonian on a PIP instead of promoting them for customer obsession, if so. 6, is tricking customers into paying fees that even a cloud economist didn't see coming a new AWS operating practice? And 7, at $2,000 a month per session, does this mean that AWS was being incredibly generous in letting me run that valuable computing resource to the tune of $14,000 before kindly asking me to start paying my own way? Or is the service instead astronomically priced to the point where it bears little, if any, relation to AWS's underlying cost structure? If the latter, is this an attempt to price based upon value? And if so, don't you think you should consider trying to deliver actual value before you start charging it? And to be clear, none of these 7 questions is rhetorical. As a customer, I expect answers. I always empathize with the usual billing panics and overages, and I have a lot of sympathy for customers who get caught in strange billing edge cases. But this particular pattern takes AWS billing to an entirely new level of predatory. When I'm falling victim to it, I wonder who else out there is too. If this is going to be AWS's path going forward, I would like to know so that I may plan accordingly. Have you ever been close to tragedy or been close to folks who have? Buddy, I work with AWS billing. I'm basically running a suicide hotline over here.